Welcome back to the Foundation series. We have built the architecture, the Sefirot, the worlds, the soul, Tikkun. We have talked about how to study the Zohar and the Agadic tradition it grows from. But there's something foundational we haven't addressed yet directly. The language itself. Not Aramaic or Hebrew as spoken languages. The language beneath the language. The system of reading that the Kabbalists use to unlock what the Torah is actually saying. Because the Zohar doesn't read Torah the way you and I read a newspaper. It reads every word as a container, every letter as a living force, every number encoded in every word as a signal pointing somewhere deeper. And if you don't understand the tools, the methods of reading, you will sit with the Zohar and wonder why it seems to leap from one idea to another with no logic. It has no logic, but the logic operates through a set of interpretive keys that most people have never been handed. Today I'm handing them to you. Gematria, letter mysticism, PaRDeS, and the broader practice of symbolic reading that makes the entire Kabbalistic tradition possible. Now, let's start with PaRDeS. Because it's the master framework, everything else fits inside it. PaRDeS is an acronym, 4 Hebrew letters, Peh, Resh, Daleth, and Samek, standing 4 levels of Torah interpretation. And the word itself means orchard, as in the orchard of wisdom. The Talmud tells the famous story of 4 sages who entered the PaRDeS, the mystical orchard. Ben Azai looked and died. Ben Zoma looked and went mad. Archer, Elisha ben Ayufuyah, cut the roots, meaning he became a heretic. And only Rabbi Akiva entered in peace and left in peace. The PaRDeS is not a casual place. It requires preparation, stability, and grounding. But it is where the deepest fruit grows. The 4 levels, Peshat, the simple, surface meaning. What did the text say? What happened? Who spoke? This is the level of narrative, of grammar, of historical context. Peshat is not shallow. A deep Peshat reading, done honestly, is the foundation everything else rests on. You cannot skip it. Remez, the hint. This is the level of allusion, of implication. When the Torah uses a specific word that echoes another passage, that echo is remez. When a grammatical anomaly points beyond itself, an extra letter, a missing letter, a word spelled differently than expected, that's remez. The text is winking at you. It's saying there's more here. Follow the thread. Next, we have Derash, the interpretive level. This is where Midrash lives, the act of drawing out meaning that is not stated explicitly but is contained within the text structure. It gaps, its juxtapositions. Derash is where the sages constructed the vast Agadic and Halakhic traditions we talked about in the last video. It's creative, it's expansive, and it often produces multiple valid readings of the same verse simultaneously. and Sod, the secret. This is the Kabbalistic level, the level where every word, every letter, every numerical value points to the inner dynamics of the Sefirot, the worlds, and the relationship between God and creation. Sod is where the Zohar operates almost exclusively. When the Zohar reads, "Let there be light," it is not interested in what light means at the Peshat level. It is reading the word Or, which is light, as a reference to the Or Ein Sof, to the first emanation of Chokmah, to the hidden light that was concealed for the righteous in the world to come. That is Sod. And here's the critical teaching. All four levels are true simultaneously. They don't contradict each other. They nest inside each other. Peshat is the body. Remez is the garment that hints at the body's shape. Derash is the soul that animates the body. And Sod is the neshama of the neshama, the innermost light that all the other layers exist to protect and transmit. You need all four. Remove any one and the reading is incomplete. Now, the letters. This is where the language of Kabbalah becomes truly unique. In the Kabbalistic understanding, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are not human inventions. They are not symbols that human created to represent sounds. They are the building blocks of creation itself. The Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, one of the oldest Kabbalistic texts, teaches that God created the world through 32 paths of wisdom, 10 Sefirot, and 22 letters. The letters are not descriptions of reality. They are the instruments through which reality was made. Each letter has a form and a shape, and that shape is not arbitrary. The Zohar teaches that the shape of each letter is a visual encoding of a spiritual force. The letter Bet, the first letter of Bereshit, the first letter of the Torah, is open on one side and closed on the other three. The Zohar says this is because creation can only look forward, what is being created, not backward, toward the Ein Sof that preceded it. The shape of the letter is the teaching. Each letter has a name, and the name is also a word with its own meaning. Aleph means ox, the primal force. Bet means house, the container. Gimel means camel, the carrier. Dalet means door, the threshold. The name of each letter is a key to its function in the cosmic architecture. When you spell a word in Hebrew, you are not just forming a sound. You are assembling a structure. You are building a house out of forces, and each letter has a numerical value. Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3. This is where Gematria enters. Gematria is the practice of reading the numerical values encoded in Hebrew words and discovering relationships between words that share the same value. The classic example, the Hebrew word Echad, 1, has a gematria of 13. Aleph is 1, Chet is 8, Dalet is 4. 1 plus 8 plus 4 equals 13. The Hebrew word Ahavah means love, also has a gematria of 13. Aleph is 1, Hey is 5, Bet is 2, and Hey is 5. 1 plus 5 plus 2 plus 5 equals 13. Oneness and love share the same numerical value. The Kabbalists don't consider this as coincidence. They consider it revelation. The language itself is telling you that to be truly one is to love, that unity and love are mathematically, which means structurally, which means cosmically identical. Another. And the word for wine, Yayin, has a gematria of 70. The word for secret, Sod, also has a gematria of 70. The Talmud says, when wine enters, secrets come out. But the Kabbalists read it deeper. Wine and secret are the same force operating at different levels. The intoxication of wine in Asiyah corresponds to the intoxication of mystical revelation in Atzilut. Same energy, different world, same gematria. Gematria is not numerology in the fortune-telling sense. It's not about predicting the future through numbers. It's a reading practice, a way of seeing structural relationships between concepts that the surface language conceals. When two words share a gematria, the Kabbalists understand them as two faces of the same spiritual reality. And the Zohar uses gematria constantly, sometimes explicitly, sometimes silently, assuming the reader will catch the numerical resonance. There are also advanced forms, mispar katan, reduced value, where you collapse numbers to a single digit. Atbash, a substitution cipher where the first letter of the alphabet is swapped with the last, the second with the second to last, and so on. Notarikon, where the first or last letters of consecutive words form a hidden word. Temurah, letter permutation, rearranging the letters of a word to find a hidden word concealed within it. These are not games, they are lenses. Each one reveals a different dimension of the text's inner structure. Now, all of this comes together in what I'd call symbolic reading, the actual practice of how the Zohar engages Torah. When the Zohar encounters a verse, it does not ask what happened. It asks, what is this describing in the upper worlds? Every character in the Torah becomes a Sefirah or a PaRDeS. Avraham is Hesed, Yitzchak is Gevurah, Yaakov is Tiferet, Sarah is Malkuth in one configuration, Rivkah is Malkuth in another. The land of Israel is the Shekinah, Egypt is the Klippah, the desert is the space of transformation between exile and promised land, which is the space between the broken vessels and the rectified ones. Every action in the Torah is a movement on the tree. When Avraham goes forth from his land, his birthplace, and his father's house, the Zohar reads this as the soul descending from Atzilut through Beriah, through Yetzirah, into Asiyah. 3 levels of living, 3 garments being put on, the story of Avraham's journey and the story of the soul's incarnation are the same story told at different levels of PaRDeS. When the Torah says, "And there was evening and there was morning, one day," the Zohar reads evening as Gevurah, morning as Hesed, and one day as Tiferet, uniting them. The daily cycle of light and darkness is a description of the Sefirot in motion. The calendar itself is a living diagram. This is what I mean by the language of Kabbalah. It's not just Hebrew vocabulary. It's a complete hermeneutic, a way of reading reality as text and text as reality. Everything means something. Every detail encodes a teaching. And once you begin to read this way, once PaRDeS, Gematria, letter mysticism, and symbolic correspondence become native to how you see, the Torah stops being a book you read and becomes a world you inhabit. And this is the skill we'll be exercising from here forward. Every time we sit with a parashah, every time we open the Zohar on a passage, every time a verse appears simple and we press into it, we'll be using these tools: Peshat, Remez, Derash, Sod. The numerical values underneath the words, the shapes of the letters, the correspondences between characters and Sefirot. This is the lens. And now that you have it, everything you look at through at it will reveal more than it did before. I will see you in the next video. Shalom.